Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here with Aaron Horowitz, co-hosts of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. The AutoLeadStar platform is built on a technology so powerful it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world at scale and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadStar is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing today. All right, we are back. Aaron, I am so excited for today's episode.
Oh yeah, this is a really special one. I hope everyone showed up to listen today. We have an amazing guest today and could not be more excited to introduce him to our listeners and talk with him a little bit about the industry and Nissan actually, because we have Michael Colleran, who's the corporate vice president at Nissan Motor Co. In the US, and he's a senior vice president, Nissan US Marketing and Sales, Nissan North America. He is here with us today, and what's so interesting, I saw, Mike, when we looked at your bio, you joined Nissan in the middle of the pandemic. Did I get that right?
Well, I joined Nissan USA.
Nissan USA.
Pandemic. I've been with Nissan actually for 10 years now, after 21 years with General Motors, a couple of years with Saab, which we took private from a General Motors sale. But I've been with Nissan for 10 years, but back in the US for a little over a year now.
Got it. And where were you prior to that?
I was at INFINITI. I was the.
Oh, so that's when you were in Japan, I saw, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I was the global chairman. We actually were located in Hong Kong. We subsequently moved the headquarters just as I was coming back this way to Yokohama, and that's where INFINITI is located today.
Understood. Okay, interesting. And so in this kind of new reality, was that, I mean, I can't imagine a more insane time to take on a new role than April 2020 as kind of, February, March, April. I mean, the insanity was just launching. Like, how was that for you?
Well, it was a little crazy because we were, we were 95% done on the move from Hong Kong to Yokohama. I'm coming back to the States to essentially bounce into the States, try and bounce back to Japan. Because at that point, certain countries were closing down and certain shipping lanes, so to speak, were not available, and then got stuck here. And it was at that time when they came to me and said, hey, look, do you think you could take over the U.S. Sales and marketing operations? And something I had really was not on the agenda, but COVID changed everything. It changed how consumers are purchasing cars today. It changed certainly the way that we work together and interact, and ultimately it changed the course of my career because I was not expecting to come back to the U.S.
Wow,
I was expecting to go back to Japan and was ready to do so, but really glad to be home.
Wow. So how long were you, let's say COVID had not happened, right now you would be in Japan most likely.
I would definitely have been in Japan, still serving as the chairman of INFINITI USA, or of INFINITI Global.
Wow. Oh, wow. So that's an amazing life change that it came about through it. Yeah, there's all the stories of like finding the silver lining in any cloud. Yeah. So I recall this article I read. Oh man, it must have been like even 10, 12 years ago, in Forbes or Fortune. I was in an airport and there was this great story about how corporations were hiring ex-military officers because of all the transformation and change in business and kind of the operating environment. They were kind of looking for profiles and competencies that could handle uncertainty, pressure, sort of multivariate environments, and so on and so forth. And so, when we were getting to know you a bit, we learned about your history in the Marines, and I assume you started from the bottom there because doesn't everybody, right? That's the whole ethos there, right?
Oh, no question about it, right?
Yeah, you started from the bottom, you made it up to captain, which is a pretty significant rank. So do you agree with that kind of thesis of the this article, like, do you believe that the experiences you had at that point in your life, lent something to kind of what you had to do during COVID?
Yeah, there are no questions. It's a matter of fact, I like the question quite a bit. I think there's a number of different training environments where great leaders come from, not just the military, but the military does provide some unusual experiences. I mean, once you've been shot at, everything else seems to be a little less important. And sometimes it's about your composure and your ability to react in difficult landscapes. And there's a number of places where you can pick that up along the way, not just the military, but certainly it has had a great impact on me. And my views going forward, not just that aspect of it, but really on a day-to-day basis. I think the discipline of thought, of action, of how you interact with your team is extremely important. And I think it's the basis for some of the successes that I've had in this business. And I think it underpins many great leaders. You see that they've had to face adversity. And when you've had to face that adversity a number of times, you start to understand that the sun always rises, and that good teams find a way to make things happen in difficult times.
And isn't there also like some level of sort of respecting people for their accomplishments rather than any trappings that you kind of pick up? I think those environments, where you have to trust people and you see people in the worst and the best. And, as a leader, Nissan now, and prior to that, and the other auto companies you were in, which are kind of these really big organizations with a lot of tensions. Think about 2008 and probably what you experienced during those years. And, how has it kind of shaped the way you trust people you manage, or how you relate to them, in terms of your management philosophy?
Yeah, that's another great question, because it definitely comes from the Marine Corps philosophy of rely on each other and support each other. And when you think about the COVID period that we've been dealing with, and maybe post-COVID is not the right word, but because we're certainly not out of it. Certainly, certain markets certainly aren't. But in that environment, as we've started to find our way out of COVID, I think we had to rely on each other. We've really had to rely here on teams and making sure that the teams are keeping their cohesion, which is difficult when you're on Zoom every day, or in those environments where you have to be together, like manufacturing, where we're safely supporting each other and trusting each other. And clearly, teamwork, I think, is one of the things that maybe was perhaps a little undervalued versus what the reality of today is. And keeping those teams together has been really one of the key challenges of leadership here at Nissan, and I'm sure other companies are seeing it as well. And now, we have a global supply chain, I would say, issue, a number of issues out there. And once again, it's great teamwork that seems to be lifting us beyond what might be expected.
I know back in 2011 or 2010, you were in Canada and you were liaising with the dealer network in Canada, right? The Nissan dealer network. Mm-hmm. I'm always so curious about that relationship because, it seems like, I'm more familiar with the US history, but it kind of was forged in, at first this sort of, the tensions that came after the Great Depression. And, there's this historical on the US OEMs, the domestic OEMs, and you were GM, there's this very storied relationship of their dealers and the manufacturers, famous stories of Henry Ford and, how he interacted with his dealers and whatnot. And so I wonder with Nissan, which is a foreign OEM, essentially, even though it's for all intents and purposes embedded in the US, right? And like most of the foreign OEMs, what's different about a Nissan dealer network and a, say, domestic dealer network? Kind of what is there, because it's a newer brand for the US, is it a different energy, or, give us a little bit insight into that, because we don't get to see behind that curtain that often.
Well, so Aaron, I'd probably correct you up front and say, we've been here 60 years. So
60 years, you're right. We've been
here for a long time.
I kind of I live in like the 20s and 30s of because I love those stories of there was this great essay in the New Yorker by, what's his name, James Surowiecki or something like that. He wrote this great essay of like how the auto industry OEM dealer dynamic came about in sort of, this moment where the OEMs were telling the dealers, like, you are going to buy my product during the Great Depression or you're going to lose your point. And then the dealers kind of struck back by trying to build out these franchise protection laws at the state level. And that kind of created this balance of power, the effects of which we still see to this day. So you're correct. Nissan's much older than I thought, but
we are. And I was asked in a recent interview about how I felt about the changes in the administration. And I said, we've been here 60 years.
60 years. On the record,
we've
correct.
Dealt with a lot of the administrations, worked with a lot of the administrations, and we always seem to work well with them. So from a standpoint of the dealer network, though, structurally, really no difference between us and the domestics. We run our businesses the same ways. And some of that is just structurally the way the business works. It's a build to stock system here, where manufacturers build cars, dealers buy those cars, and then consumers come in, as opposed to build to order. So that determines a lot of your structure as to how you're actually going to operate. And of course, the laws of the country and the states are all the same for everybody. So we interact the same way. When I think about our dealer network, it's a dealer network that has been at the top of customer satisfaction. So whether it's J.D. Power, CSI, SSI, Reputation.com, we were actually number one this year in Reputation.com survey of online reputation management. So very happy with our network from that standpoint. And then the resiliency of the network has been, I would say, a core strength for us. No matter what, Mother Nature or the world tends to throw at us, they seem to be flexible, fast to adapt, and always with the mindset of taking care of the customers. Done a great job, and I would say in many ways we're very similar to the U.S. network structure and what you would expect. Probably the one difference I'd say in the short run has been Nissan has developed an online purchasing tool called Nissan at Home, and you can buy at home, you can service at home, you can test drive at home. And our dealers, and we do this through our dealers, as opposed to some manufacturers that have decided to go direct. We have not. We are going to continue to work with our dealer partners, and we think that combination is the best. But literally, you can sit at home, buy it now, all the way through, and take delivery right at your home, even test drive it.
How can consumers find that if they want to play with that? Like, what's the best way to kind of get a look at it?
Nissan USA, you can go right in, and it's across 50 states. Across the USA, you can do that. And every state, we have the ability to do that now.
That's nice. So when did that initiative come about?
Well, we've been piloting it over the last 6 months or so, maybe even 9 months. And we went live April 1st.
Very nice.
Something that you were working on prior to COVID, or did COVID accelerate it?
That's a great question, Alana, and you answered it as well. We were starting prior to COVID. COVID definitely accelerated it, and we saw the ability to, in this environment where consumers' adoption rates were clearly going to be higher, accelerate that, and try to be the first with a completely integrated. I'm looking for the right word, integrated and full value chain ability to purchase from end to end, not just a couple of waypoints along the way, but literally stay the whole way on your couch and bring that car in and drive it.
And that's an important distinction, because I think a lot are out there in the market saying that they do end to end, when really it just brings them closer to coming into the store versus having that full end to end experience.
Completely agree with that statement. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you think about sort of it just seems like that is going to be a key asset for anyone who wants to be, meaning many people will still want to come into a dealership and they will want to touch and feel that car, and they will, but there is a very significant, as we see from looking at the public markets and how some of those kind of pure play digital platforms are moving, there's clearly a demand, and you can imagine that demand is going to rise, and you just kind of need to have it. Like you need to have a website, you need to have your digital marketing, you need to have that ability.
Everyone will be
launched it.
Everyone will be there, and it's just a question of kind of who arrives first and with the best solutions out there. But everybody will want it, and it is interesting to watch because when you're on an electronic system like that, you can see consumers along the way will decide to opt out. And when I say opt out, not necessarily not buy, although that's one of the ways to opt out. But they may opt out and say, I've gone all the way down. I've got my credit rating done, and I've already got my trade-in value guaranteed. But I want to go drive it at the dealership,
Right?
Because I don't want to just drive one car brought to me. I'm going to try and drive 3 different versions, or maybe different trim levels. And so they'll say, I'll go to the store and do that. Or they may at the last second say, you know what, I really want to do the experience of taking delivery at the store, which can be, some fanfare at certain stores, depending on how they want to do it. And so we've seen consumers along the way drop out, but we've also seen consumers that go all the way end to end, and the car is literally just dropped off by a flatbed truck. And
Fantastic. That is awesome.
Right there. Yeah.
So that's 19 days in the wild, right? Meaning that's fresh. Ilana, we were breaking news here, aren't we?
I know this is breaking news.
Yeah.
Breaking news announced here. You heard it first.
We did announce it back in December.
Okay, got it. Good. So we're a little behind the curve here, but
you're probably what I will tell you. I think you're one of the first outlets I've talked to since we've launched. So
okay, good. There we go.
Like I said, we are 19 days into it.
Very nice. Good to hear that. So tell us about, I'm just curious about you a little bit more. Like you traveled, I assume you traveled in the service, but even as a professional, it kind of did you get into auto immediately after the Marine Corps? Did you go to university? What's your journey kind of to auto?
Well, auto started more as side of the family side of the business before the military.
Oh, really?
Yeah, through my father. And was washing cars and doing stuff like that. And he worked for another manufacturer, and I had the opportunity to get exposed to cars, and just loved cars, like a lot of young kids, and never lost my love for those cars. But the military called, sort of called. I actually went. It's a long story, but I went to a recruiter to talk a friend out of joining the Army, and ended up in the Marine Corps as a result of that. It was not planned, not thought out. It's a great story someday when you get a little more time. And then ended up in the Marine Corps for a number of years, and then got out after a couple of stints where ball pushing, and they said, "Why don't you try and come back to the business?" And I ended up with General Motors. Another great story, and spent 21 years with them, I think, maybe a little longer.
Did you do your BA before or after the Marine Corps?
Before the Marine Corps.
Your MBA was after?
And the MBA was after.
Got it. And then you traveled. Like, were you up for the travel? Was that sort of, I don't know. It seems like you really, you went to Japan and you were in Canada and you're back in the US. Like, how does that, do you like that? Do you feel like that's just part of what it takes? Like, how do you relate to that, from a human level?
Yeah, I think mostly it's a requirement of the business, and you just, you get used to it. Everybody thinks it's really, fun and glamorous to start with. And then you realize that well, at least at one point, it was a terrible waste of time because you were in the air. But now you can work almost the whole way. And those flights from Hong Kong to Dallas and then back to Nashville, back and forth, were, some of the time I got most of my work done. It was
how often would you do that? Like, was there a month where you were doing that? I don't know, every 2 weeks? Like how often?
No.
Okay.
No, just more every 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so.
Got it.
Sometimes even a little bit more. But interim, you're traveling back and forth to Japan, which is only a 3-hour flight from Hong Kong, and then of course the travel here in the States. And I just got back from New York on Saturday morning. And that maybe is actually more interesting, is that business travel has started again. And we spent 3 days in Washington, New Jersey, and New York, back talking to dealers face to face.
And you were, so in that when you get to those, when you show up at those dealers, kind of what's the number one thing you're hearing right now that they want the kind of the brand to know, when they get in front of you?
Mostly we're hearing optimism. The stores are busy. Obviously a little concern over the recent supply issues, but they have cars right now, so they're pretty happy about that. Whereas some other manufacturers may be a little less well situated. But generally speaking, you hear about that. You hear about electrification and what's our viewpoint on electrification going out, not surprisingly.
Yep.
But more than anything, what we get is a lot of Nissan Next and our strategic plan on how to grow the business, and essentially, we're changing the business, changing the product, changing the culture. And anytime you're trying to take that on and make those changes stick, a lot of work that has to be done there. And we start with the product. The all-new Sentra and all-new Rogue are hits in the marketplace, period. End of the story. You guys can go out and, the stats are available there. Growing share, better customer, more household income, more creditworthy. Dealers see a commitment to a more, I would say, smart rental sales, where we're lowering our rental business, still in the business, but lower, and a lower day supply of vehicles on the lots. So making the entire business change and chain start to reflect the desires of Nissan Next. So again, changing that product from the ground up, and then changing the business, and then of course changing the culture as well to a culture that is, as we like to say, moving it from price to value, or from push to pull, and letting the market pull the business through. And that's happening right now, and we can see it and feel it. So, we're very happy with that. But it all starts with product. And, I just said Sentra and Rogue doing so much better, and we can feel that pull coming through. And those products are a blueprint for 10 new products over 20 months. We've just finished revealing the last of those with Frontier and Pathfinder. And Pathfinder launch is coming up real soon. So we're very excited about that.
You heard it here first.
We're just full of breaking news today.
I know. And we've launched on top of that our first brand campaign in many years to once again reconnect consumers with the Nissan brand itself, not just the products, but the brand. And you've seen the work that Brie Larson has done for us recently, which has been extremely well received in the marketplace, at talking about all the new products that are here or are coming. And she finishes us saying, "This is the next Nissan."
I think it's so important to show that horizon, and people to know that you guys are committed to. It's true also about us. We make technology for dealers. That's our company, but we always try to communicate to the dealers, like, okay, not make it a secret. We want to know, here's the next thing we're attacking. Here's how we're thinking about it. People feel good when there's life and development and innovation. And I think when you feel like a vendor, a brand, a company is stagnant and just kind of sitting on what it has, it's not interesting to people these days. They want to feel like you're going somewhere, and there's that journey element, which I think is very human too, right? Humans relate to journeys, relate to stories with beginning, middles.
Okay.
So there's something about it that's, if you can kind of have that feeling people are journeying with you, or you're journeying somewhere exciting, it's always powerful. I have one question that that we're going to have to get you out of here because we know you got something coming up. But Mike, I'm always curious about the interplay between the global markets when it comes to product, right? Because products are designed with the understanding that different markets have different needs. But like, I sometimes think about it, like, it's not the case that every US city, meaning there are parts of the US, let me think about how to phrase this. There are parts of the US where a vehicle that's made in India or Europe might fit better than a vehicle that's made for the US, right? There's something like flattening, I think, about that. So I know that Nissan and most OEMs have some products that fit to different markets or that sell in different markets. To what extent is there thinking about kind of like micro or hyper targeting, regions for different types of vehicles that maybe aren't found in the US today or what have you? Does that sort of thing happen at all?
It certainly does. I mean, consumers have different preferences across the states, across the globe and across the states. We have a good ability to react and place products into those markets that make sense for the consumer and what they demand. We practice that today. Just look at EVs. EVs tend to sell in the U.S. a little bit stronger on the coasts right now, and a little bit less in the central parts of the country. Of course, that will change with the new administration's viewpoint, and we're prepared to do that. We're launching the all-new Aria that's coming up, and that's an EV and EV SUV, and we're extremely excited about that. And that happens a little bit less than a year from now. But certainly we have the ability to do that and target products across the globe. We have a global footprint, and you can see that from many of the global OEMs that they're able to do that. Nissan can as well.
Mike, just is Shop at Home global?
No, Shop at Home is a U.S. Platform.
If I'm sitting in, I don't know, Paris, and I want to order a Nissan, I can't. It's not the same interface. You don't have that yet. Is there a European analog to Shop at Home?
The global direction for Nissan is to have online purchasing available across the globe, but it's a phase-in approach. The U.S. is first.
Very nice. Okay, great. There we go. All right. Wonderful. Well, this was really a pleasure. We super appreciated talking to you. It was very interesting. And, I feel like Ilana, we could probably have gone on for a couple more hours here. We haven't gotten to the good stuff. Let's put it that way. We know there's some good stories here that Mike's holding back. We'll hopefully catch it at some upcoming conference. We'll get some good stories. But
I'd love to tell you those stories sometimes. And Ilana and Aaron, it's been a real pleasure. And so maybe we do round two sometime.
Amazing.
Yeah,
we would love
round
to do that.
where we look at Nissan at Home, some of the stats. Since it was just launched 19 days ago, we could do that, and then we can bring in some of the funnier stories.
Sounds great. I look forward to it.
Wonderful. Okay, wonderful. So Ilana, let's let our listeners know how they can hear this show, other shows, and then we're going to wrap with Mike here.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much, Mike. You can find all of our podcasts on all mainstream apps, iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. You can find all that information at InsideAutoPodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.